She says the truth is.
The boys really decided to introduce us to superheroes who are not much of a barker in all of the bites. We have Black Noir of the Seven, who's silent and deadly, and for the boys, we have the fifth member of the group, Kimiko Miyashiro. She doesn't talk much, but don't let her silence fool you into thinking that she's not that girl. Her actions speak louder than anything else. This champion of the boys is someone with superhuman strength, speed, and a desire to mess up anyone who chooses to stand in her way. But what makes her an unstoppable force? That's what we'll explain in this video, so let's get down to business. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Kimiko? How does she get her powers? Did you know that in the comics, Kimiko didn't even have a name? The whole name Kimiko Miyashiro was invented by the TV producers, and for good reason. I mean, calling her Kimiko is better than calling her the female in my eyes. And that is not the only thing they changed. In the TV show, the main driving force for Kimiko was returning to her brother. See, Kimiko grew up with her brother Kenji near the coast of Japan. One night, a group of terrorists descended upon the unsuspecting family and decided to kidnap the two kids after brutally killing the parents in front of them. These terrorists were part of the Shining Light Liberation Army, and they took children with them to the Philippines. Here, the kids were forced to serve them during the war. War is a harrowing experience for even adults to go through, so you can imagine just how traumatized these two kids were. The trauma was so severe that Kimiko stopped talking completely. However, in the midst of the chaos, having her brother with her gave Kimiko some comfort. In a world where everything that they could call their own was snatched away from them, these two siblings ended up becoming each other's world. They developed their own sign language, which helped them communicate, and their bond became stronger. The kids tried to escape several times, but Kimiko never managed to succeed. After another failed attempt at escaping, the terrorists decided that it would be better to get rid of her, and that's what they did. They smuggled Kimiko to the United States, and she ended up at a nail salon. Kimiko was absolutely heartbroken for being separated from Kenji, but there was no one to hear her grief. The people she ended up with were the Triad. As we know, Homelander really wanted the superheroes to be part of the military. To prove to the government that they needed to expand their horizons and let the supes in, Homelander smuggled Compound V to terrorists to create super terrorists. The Triads ended up with Compound V in their hands and injected it into Kimiko. Kimiko was one of the very few success stories of adults being treated with Compound V. When her success story became known, they experimented on Kenji as well. But Kimiko didn't know any of that. Since she developed the abilities of supes, she was kept in a cage like a dog by the gang underneath a grocery store. She was eventually rescued when Huey joined the team, and we know how the rest of the story goes. When it comes to her comic book counterpart, the story is even more heartbreaking. In the panels, Kimiko, better known as the female of the species, was the child of a very negligent worker who worked in a company similar to Vought. Her mother was super cheap with money and didn't want to hire a babysitter. Instead, she used to bring the baby with her in a basket under her desk. Obviously, this was a recipe for disaster, and one day, disaster struck. The female had crawled out of the space under the desk and made her merry way into another room. This room was a laboratory where the Japanese scientists were working on Compound V. And what do you know, the baby fell into a pot of chemicals. From the panels, it's evident that the baby ended up drinking some of the super juice, and when she was rescued, she had super strength as well as an insatiable urge to kill. She killed the negligent scientists working in the lab, and obviously that led to her being found out. Seeing her abilities, the company decided to keep her with them as their very own guinea pig. They kept her in a cage, barely ever letting her out, and experimented on her frequently to understand the effects that the super juice has on humans. But the female was not willing to live out her life this way. She attempted to escape several times, and eventually one day she was rescued by Billy Butcher and the boys, way before Huey was even on the team. She was recruited as a member of the boys, but years of negligence had left her a simmering ball of rage. Her desire to kill had not gone away, and to satiate that, the female worked with a local mafia. The female became rather popular as a killer, with her particular tendencies. She would often violently disembowel her victims and even rip off their faces. These tendencies were triggered by the simplest of physical contact, and it was clear that she committed these acts simply because she could not resist the urges.
God. Rhythm.
Why can't she speak? Out of all the members of the boys, Kimiko is the only one with superpowers. She's definitely an essential character of the team, but she's never seen talking. This and her desire to go home was something that made Billy Butcher distrust her quite a bit in their initial days of teaming up. But why is she mute? Well, given the brutality of her path, whether you consider the TV show origins or the comic book origins, it doesn't surprise anyone that her trauma manifested this way. Selective mutism is a very real condition that a lot of children suffer from. It usually stems from their fear of talking to other people, owing to their anxiety. In a lot of cases, children become so distressed after they're separated from their parents, or close family members that it becomes hard for them to speak. When it comes to Kimiko, she was not only separated from her family, she also had to watch her parents being murdered in front of her own eyes. This definitely left a mark on her. Then she was forced to become a child soldier for a terrorist organization. Obviously, these men did not treat her too kindly. It wouldn't surprise anyone if they had beaten her up every day and made her watch other kids at her age get killed by them. Plus, when they sent her on missions, which they obviously did, Kimiko had to witness the horrors of war right in front of her. Kimiko, from a very young age, had to go through a lot, and I mean a lot of distressing situations, so it's very clear that the recurring traumatic events in her life are what affected her and made her completely mute. Over the years, she slowly healed from her trauma and started regaining her voice, but it would take her a good while to become like you and me. Does Kimiko ever speak in The Boys? The TV show deviates quite a bit from the comic book, and honestly, as a fan of both, I do love it. In the comics, the female was always a welcome member of the team from day one. Over time, as she started making progress in her methods of communication, all the members of The Boys were super happy about it. Specifically, as she started showing reactions and emotion, The Boys decided to cut her some slack. I mean, can you blame them? Finally, the female is showing progress, and if they take her on a violent mission again, she might end up getting triggered and regressing. But when they were about to leave, the female spoke for the first time ever and announced that she hated mean people. This was the first time she spoke in a complete sentence, and I find it rather wholesome that this was her first sentence. It truly shows that even though she's a deadly character, she has her morals, which is very girl boss of her. And yes, if you're wondering, she did go on the mission with the boys to stop Billy Butcher in that storyline. Now, when it comes to the TV show, Kimiko has yet to find her voice. She's able to express her emotions through texting and writing, which is all great. Seeing her laugh in the TV show is definitely something that feels very satisfying. My favorite moment would be in Season 2, when Stormfront cockily confronted Starlight, asking her what the truth is. Kimiko started laughing, which definitely surprised Stormfront. And when Stormfront asked Kimiko what she's laughing at, Kimiko signed the truth to Frenchie, which, let's be real, I cannot say in this video without getting it demonetized. But it was a promise from Kimiko that would result in Stormfront filled up with something that she definitely would not enjoy. What makes Kimiko immune to pain in The Boys? Kimiko has a bunch of superpowers. She's genuinely a gift that keeps on giving. But personally, if there's one power that's super cool in my eyes, it would be her pain suppression. That's right, guys. Kimiko simply does not feel any pain. This is something that comes naturally to her physique. Thanks to Compound V, she can go through a lot of horrific and gruesome injuries without even faltering in her steps. Thanks to this power of hers, Kimiko can plow through a barrage of superheroes and men who are far stronger than her and sustain so many terrific wounds without even feeling hurt. Whether she's shot, stabbed, or even beaten down to a pulp, you can see it in her eyes that Kimiko is not uncomfortable. She's not in agony. She's determined that she would keep pushing until she gets what she wants. She's willing to go further than any other member of the Boys ever has just because she can. She's a formidable opponent to go against just for this power. I mean, think about it. You beat someone up, you shoot them point blank, and they just keep rising up and coming after you. How is that not the most terrifying thing ever? I personally feel that because she doesn't feel physical pain and is rather indomitable in that field, Kimiko's personality is also affected by it. Her response to physical pain is just stone cold silence, which is very similar to her expression of emotional pain. Because of this, I feel like she struggles a lot when it comes to dealing with her emotional trauma. I suppose somewhere she expected that her invulnerability to physical pain would also mean she's invulnerable to emotional pain, but she isn't. I love how complex her character is because of this. This pain suppression acts as a reminder of her traumatic past, along with her superpowers. That's why when she lost her powers after meeting Soldier Boy, Kimiko was happy. She felt like she could start a new life. But starting over is not always that easy, and when push came to shove, Kimiko realized that taking the Compound V and becoming a Sup again would be the only way she would get the chance to really start over. Does she have healing ability? Just like her pain suppression abilities, there's another ability of hers that comes in clutch when it comes to Kimiko's goal of beating anyone who stands in her way. That's her regenerative healing power. Kimiko possesses a healing ability that can easily heal any life-threatening wound in a short amount of time. When she fought with Black Noir, we all remember how violent that fight was. Black Noir left no stone unturned when it came to him beating Kimiko up. Even though he left her quite injured, Kimiko was not out of commission for a while. We all remember the sickly crunch of bones cracking when Stormfront snapped Kimiko's neck, right? That's a fatal enough injury to stop anyone in their tracks. But not for Kimiko. Our girl healed pretty quickly and got back into the fight. It could be that Kimiko is able to regenerate limbs, but that has not been explored quite yet. But one thing is clear, her regenerative power runs far deeper than what it seems to be on the surface. Don't mess with Kimiko. This chick hits like a freight train. But obviously, when it comes to Kimiko, I think the power that steals the show is her super strength. This is the power that sets her apart as a character. She's a relentless force, and that's from day one. Since the first day she was introduced to the TV show, we all collectively knew that she would mess everyone up. She's a very resilient character, and while you can chalk it up to her super strength, I think her mental fortitude also plays a huge role in that. She's a wild girl when it comes to fights, and I mean that in the best way. The way she attacks people, punches and kicks them, using her body weight to take opponents down who are far stronger than her, is such a satisfying thing to watch. She's like a beast when it comes to a fight. She has a ferocity which she displays in a very tactical way, and her brutal blows are more than enough to overwhelm any opponent who stands in her path. Seeing her shatter walls and break bones is satisfying, but seeing her break down someone's pride and its bare bones is far more satisfying. Now, obviously, we know that she ended up with this superpower because of Compound V. And while there are other characters with super strength, like Homelander, Starlight, Stormfront, and whatnot, there is one thing that sets Kimiko apart from the rest. Even when she's seemingly relaxed, you can see her posture being tensed up at all times. It's almost like Kimiko has to physically force herself to be gentle and be normal like us, which makes me wonder how strong she truly is. I mean, she literally broke A-Train's femur in a smooth motion, and the femur is literally the strongest bone of your body. And that man is a suit, so breaking any of his bones, let alone his strongest bone, would be super difficult. But she did it like it ain't no trouble. Is she faster than A-Train? As much as I would love to say that Kimiko is faster than A-Train, the fastest jerk of the Boys TV series, that simply would not be true. She is fast, but she's not quite as fast as A-Train. Kimiko definitely has superhuman speed, and we often get to see it in action whenever she's in a fight. The way she moves over short spaces at high speed makes it impossible for her opponents to see just where she is. She's a blur of lethality, and that's just satisfying to watch. Kimiko was seen doing this when Black Noir was about to beat up Frenchie, and she did manage to gain the upper hand there for a while thanks to this. Obviously, her superhuman agility also plays a role in this. Her reflexes work quite a bit faster than everyone else, and whenever she's in a close-range fight, we can see just how her reflex and superhuman speed work together to ensure that she can take down her opponents. And given she's far more durable than any human is, this type of fight doesn't end anytime soon. I, for one, would never want to be on the receiving end of her barrage of punches, no matter how fascinating I find her. Does she have any biological weakness? Despite what an absolute unit she is, Kimiko is not devoid of weaknesses. Obviously, her mutism is a psychological weakness that plays a huge role in combat situations, but there's more to it. Despite how agile and durable she is, if somehow the opponent is able to land a strong enough blow on Kimiko, she does get knocked down. When she's treated with extreme force, Kimiko loses consciousness. Whether it's a physical force like punches and kicks, or if it's an electrical force, like the time when Stormfront electrocuted her while simultaneously slamming her into a metal container. Even when she's shot in the head or her neck gets snapped, for a moment Kimiko loses consciousness, which puts her in an extremely vulnerable spot, even if it's just for a few minutes. On top of that, another way Kimiko can be put out of commission is when anesthetic gases are introduced into the equation. Even though she's a soup and she should be invulnerable to things like this, I guess Kimiko's body simply is not. In the TV show, on their second encounter with Kimiko, the boys had to use a high concentration of halothane to knock her out. Lastly, like most soups, Kimiko gets affected severely by high frequency. It kind of reminded me of Invincible, who, as you all know, is not very invincible about a particular frequency. I guess despite Garth Ennis hating superhero tropes with a passion, he chose not to get rid of these common weaknesses. Does she have any love interest? Can she reproduce? If you're a sucker for romance with hurt and comfort like me, then you definitely like the Kimiko-Frenchie pairing. When they first met, although Frenchie was scared of Kimiko, it was evident that there was a connection between them. When she got into a fight with Black Noir just to protect Frenchie, that definitely warmed him up to her. Seeing her bleed out on the street was definitely not something Frenchie wanted to see. And when he saw that she was able to heal herself, Frenchie was glad. This scene obviously made me excited for their relationship to come in the future season, and I was not disappointed. Frenchie and Kimiko's relationship developed further, and eventually Frenchie became the only one of the boys who was able to calm her down in stressful situations. Frenchie respected that Kimiko wanted to find her brother, and when they had an encounter with Mesmer, Frenchie asked Kimiko to come with him and look for her brother. Obviously, he did so to take her as far away as he could from the fight that was about to break out, which was definitely wholesome. As we know, the siblings eventually met, but their reunion was not a happy one. Kenji eventually sacrificed himself to protect Kimiko, and Stormfront was the one who killed Kenji. Obviously, that led to Kimiko harboring some strong negative emotions towards Stormfront, and when she thought about killing Stormfront in a public rally, she seemed rather determined. Despite that, when Frenchie stopped her, Kimiko stopped, but she was on the edge. To release this edge of bloodlust, she became a hitman for the Albanian mafia, which eventually disgusted Frenchie. Their relationship was already in a tough spot after Frenchie tried to kiss Kimiko after her brother died, and with her becoming a hitman, their relationship tension rose 1,000-fold. Eventually, they made amends when Frenchie and Lamplighter took a trip down their troubled memory lane and made amends. The last we see of Frenchie and Kimiko was teaching him her special sign language, which truly marks a huge step in their relationship. Now, this is what we get in the TV series. In the comic book panels, Frenchie is not a lover at all. He's more like a parental figure to Kimiko, helping her understand the nuances of her emotions and helping her become more human. Both versions of their relationship are wholesome to me, but being a sucker for romance, I definitely like the TV series version more. As far as the reproductive abilities of Kimiko are concerned, she can definitely reproduce. As we've seen several times in the show and the comics, the Supes are able to create offspring in both natural and artificial ways. But the problem is there's no guarantee that her powers would be passed down to her child. But I doubt Kimiko would want those powers, which serve as a reminder of her broken past, to be passed down to her child if she ever decided to be a mom.
Oh God.
Is she immortal? Finally, now that we've broken down all of her powers, let's get to the most important question. Well, that depends on which version you're thinking about. When it comes to the TV series, chances are that Kimiko will not be killed off. She is, after all, one of the main characters, and it's clear that she has a lot of plot arc left to cover. Even if she were to get super close to dying, I'm sure the boys would give her some Compound V and save her. But when it comes to the comic book version, I don't have good news for you guys. By the end of the series, Billy Butcher, the main guy of the boys, has pretty much lost all of his senses. He was in the White House and learned who actually killed his wife and dealt swift justice to that Supe, and it was not Homelander. After that, he decided to free the whole world of the ones with superpowers, and he did so one by one. He started by bombing the Supes left, right, and center to ensure no one got away. He even killed Huey and Mother's Milk because they didn't support his plans. The bombs that Billy was using would target everyone who had Compound V in their system, and as Kimiko falls into that category, she too was targeted. Frenchie and Kimiko tried their best to find the bomb and dismantle it, but before they could find it, it went off, killing them both. As the TV show has been following its own route, I wonder if that would result in Kimiko and Soldier Boy having a fight to their death. Let's see what happens in the 4th season. Marvelous verdict. Karen Fukuhara did an amazing job portraying the female of the species. She's gentle when she needs to be and tense at other times, showing so many raw emotions without uttering a single word. Kimiko is a complex character, and it's truly satisfying to see her portrayed this way by such a capable actor. As fans, we're excited to see just how much trouble the boys will cause in the 4th season, and what role Kimiko will play in all of that. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!